The clock struck death. A murder at 8:00 p.m. The grandfather clock in Blackthorn Manor struck 8, its deep, echoing chimes reverberating through the drawing room like a funeral bell. Seconds later, a scream tore through the silence. Lady Eleanor Maddington stood frozen by the fireplace, her sherry glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the floor. The other guests rushed to the source of the scream, the study. Inside, slumped over the polished oak desk, was the lifeless body of Lord Alfred Maddington, the patriarch of the estate. A letter opener, elegant, silver-plated, and engraved with the family crest, was buried deep in his chest. The study smelled of ink, leather, and something else: blood. The only sound was the soft tick-tock of the grandfather clock down the hall. Chapter 1. The unwelcome gathering. Just hours earlier, the Maddingtons had gathered for Lord Alfred's 70th birthday dinner. The occasion, however, was anything but joyful. The family had been estranged for years, brought together only at Eleanor's insistence and Alfred's recent announcement. He intended to change his will. That evening, the drawing room was a bubbling cauldron of restrained civility. Charles, the embittered eldest son, cut off from the family business after a gambling scandal. Vivian, the younger daughter, charming but desperate and heavily in debt. Jonathan, the cousin who lived on the estate, the quiet observer, rarely trusted but always present, and Miss Eva Cray, the private nurse, dutiful, loyal, and according to whispers, overly fond of her wealthy employer. They were all in attendance, each with secrets and motives. Chapter 2. Enter Inspector Wren. Inspector Harold Wren arrived before the body was cold. Calm and methodical, he asked just one question. "What time did you last see Lord Alfred alive?" 10 minutes before 8, said Vivian. "He went to his study, said he wanted to be alone. Did anyone follow him?" A moment of hesitation. "I passed him the brandy," Jonathan admitted. "Then I left him alone." Wren examined the study. No sign of forced entry. The windows were locked. The door had been closed, but not locked. Anyone could have slipped in. The murder weapon, the family letter opener, had no fingerprints, but Wren's eyes lingered on the clock on the mantel. It had stopped at exactly 8:00 p.m. Too poetic, he thought. Chapter 3. Everyone lies. Wren began his quiet interviews, unpeeling layers of truth like an onion. Charles had been arguing with Alfred that afternoon. The old man had threatened to cut him off completely. Vivian had visited the study the night before. She claimed she only spoke to her father, but the maid saw her tearing pages from a book and burning them in the fireplace. Jonathan was always loyal, but Alfred had begun suspecting him of stealing estate funds. And Eva, the nurse, had no alibi. Her fingerprints were on the brandy glass. When questioned, she paled. He asked me to pour it. I didn't harm him. I loved him," she whispered. Wren didn't reply. He noted something else. In the fire grate of the study were burned, pieces of paper too charred to read, but one corner remained, a wax seal in red, the family crest. I'm. Chapter 4. The clock's clue. It was the stopped clock that finally made Wren pause. The study's mantel clock was in perfect condition. Why would it stop at exactly 8:00 p.m.? He had it examined. It hadn't failed mechanically. Someone had turned it back and manually stopped the hands. A dramatic touch, Wren muttered. Someone wanted us to believe the murder happened at 8. But what if it wasn't? He ordered the butler to check the kitchen's mechanical time log, a system Alfred had installed to track servant hours. The record showed a pot of tea had been started at 8:07 p.m. and brought to the study, where Alfred was already dead. So, the murder hadn't occurred at 8 p.m., but a few minutes before. Someone had deliberately set the scene. Chapter 5. The killer revealed. Wren called everyone back into the study. The crime, he said, was not of passion, but of design. Someone carefully staged it to seem poetic. The clock was stopped at 8. The weapon was family property. The paper in the fire, I believe, was the new will. Gasps. You all had motive, but only one had the means, timing, and cunning to manipulate the scene. He turned to Jonathan. You knew Alfred was going to name Vivian sole heir. You found the will, destroyed it, and killed him before dinner. You prepared the room, set the clock to 8, and used Eva's fingerprints on the brandy glass to frame her. That's absurd, Jonathan stammered. Wren lifted a small fragment from an envelope. The seal was matched to the last will's draft Alfred had shown to his solicitor, naming Vivian heir and removing you completely. Jonathan's face darkened. He was going to throw me out. After everything I did for this estate. For him, he gave everything to that parasitic daughter. You staged the time to create an alibi for yourself, Wren interrupted. But real time left its trace. Jonathan lunged for the door, but 2 constables stepped in. Wren sighed, adjusting his coat. Time, he said, looking at the clock, doesn't lie. People do. Vivian inherited the estate. Though her joy was short-lived, debts still came knocking. Eva left the manor. Charles returned to his city life, once again denied. And the clock? It was never wound again. Call to action for YouTube. If you enjoyed this classic whodunit, don't let the mystery stop here. Condor. Like this video if you love vintage murder tales. Comment below who did you suspect before the reveal. Share this with your fellow mystery lovers. And most importantly, subscribe to Classic Crime Vault to unlock more deadly secrets every week. Because in this vault, every tick could be a trick.